Hello, I'm Angela. I am working at IPPO. Good afternoon, sir. Welcome.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Thank you. Sorry, I was in another meeting. I had to.
No worries, sir. No worries. I'm not too sure if the other speakers are able to join in now, but for the ones that we have joined, thank you for accepting to be the speakers today. And just wanted to quickly run you through the way we will take it forward. I will introduce your respective moderators and they will take it on from there. They will do your introductions and the question answers and the PPTs that you have prepared, etc. So, and then followed by the question answer session. We've kept the discussion for an hour each. If it goes beyond, I mean, we'll just have to manage our time accordingly. So Nidhi ma'am is the moderator for one of the sessions and Gunjan is for moderator for the second session. Basically just wanted to brief the people that IP Fest is into the 5th edition this year. And as every year, we've tried to add something new to a new flavor. And this year we did an IPR League, which was basically for the startups. We did a unique kind of contest for the startups who have registered certain IP. As IPPO is into awareness of intellectual property, we thought that this would be a good addition in terms of, making aware from the success stories that are brought out from this. With that, we have a couple of panel discussions through the day. And towards the end of it, we also do an IP Hall of Fame, which is the honors that we do for recognizing people who have contributed. Excuse me, please.
Got it. Yes, that improvement. Thank you. Thank you. Need some hot water.
Can you please take? Can you just keep a track on the people that need to be joined, Chandrakant?
Yes, ma'am.
Just keep a track of the speakers that we need to get in, please.
Yeah.
VC Vivekanandan ji must be there.
Okay.
It's not really.
Hemang Shah must be there.
A lot of legal items.
Hello, Anubhav, how are you?
Going forward.
Hi, Angela. I'm good. Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon, sir. Good afternoon.
Just give me a second. I'll just be back, please. Just give me a second.
Yes.
Good afternoon.
I think meanwhile, may I just take this opportunity because our session is going to be the first. I'm going to be the moderator, and after introduction, I think there's a special request. Otherwise, I would have definitely gone to DG sir first. Being an expert from the field of innovation and academics, he would have been able to throw some light more in the beginning. But I think Anubhav sir has got some assignment and engagement. So I'll first go to him, and then I will go to DG sir, and thereafter I'll go to Rahul. I'll introduce the topic, and this is going to be the sequence. And I think Anjula has already kept us on guard that we have an hour. So I would take that liberty as a moderator to request the speakers to keep themselves within the boundaries of around 15 minutes. Sorry, Anjula, a very quick briefing that I gave as a moderator so that we do not get, delayed with the session. So took this opportunity when you were not with us and finished my first level of job. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. I think it's the teamwork that we step into each other's shoes that kind of, makes us, kind of bond together and are comfortable with each other. Thank you so much for doing that. I was just trying to request the other speakers if they could spare the time, but since they are occupied with something, they might join us. Or they... So I was, good afternoon, everyone, for joining us as speakers for IP Fest. IP Fest is into its 5th year. Sorry for the others. This might be a little bit of repetition of what I just said, but IP Fest is into the 5th year. And as every year, we've kind of added a flavor to the IP Fest by getting an IPR League, which was a contest for startups that we did, which was done. We've got the names that will be final, that have been finalized, and we will be announcing them tomorrow along with the Hall of Fame. So the IP Fest is basically a panel discussions. We have certain activities that we do, and we also honor people who have contributed in the field of IP in respective categories that we're going to be honoring them tomorrow. So that's more of an IP Fest. Today we are doing the panel discussions. Pandemic has given us opportunities to kind of connect with each other through virtual forums, though we would have loved to have it done physically, which we did for the earlier years. Hoping that next year we will definitely see each other, at the sessions, physically meeting up with people, etc. So thank you very much. Any questions that you all may have? Nidhi ma'am has briefly briefed. So I would probably be introducing the moderators in the respective sessions. The moderators will then introduce the speakers and then take it forward. Thank you for doing justice in advance, and we look forward to having you on board again soon. So with that, I would, is there anything anybody has any question that you want to pose?
I don't have.
Thank you. Gunjan, thank you. So thank you, moderators, for taking that load off me for some time. And I will be available at the back end. Should there be anything, I should be available to help you out. Rahulji, this is the first time that you're with us. Is there anything that you have to say?
No, I'm just now waiting for my turn.
All right. All right.
Good luck for the other speakers.
Sure, sir. Jatin bhai, you have any comments to make?
Sorry, Anjula.
I said, do you have anything?
Do you think these experts are sitting here and I have a right to comment on? Hi, Rahul. How are you?
Hello, sir. All good. All good. How are you?
Good to see you after a long time.
Yeah.
Anubhav, I'm happy to see a smile on your face.
Thank you, Jatin bhai.
I know
So we
the
are very
situation.
sorry to hear about the loss, but I think we are deeply hurt by that.
And my personal thanks to you for joining. I know the situation which you are facing right now.
Absolutely.
So for you, it was a very open thing, and I told Anjula not to follow up much before with you. But at the same time, I am also aware that you are so passionate to share your knowledge, so that you are here. But thank you very much personally.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jatin bhai. I think it's the association with IPPO for so many years that brings me back, and also I'm very thankful to all the other participants for accommodating the request, and of course to Anjula and you for making for adjusting the time. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for being there, sir. Thank you. I'll quickly go off and check with the other speakers, and then we'll try and start on time, hopefully. Thank you.
Hello, hi, Mr. Hemant.
Hi, Gunjan. Hey, everyone. I'm going to be on mute because I think this is the virtual world, right? My neighbor started some renovation work. It had to start about an hour ago.
Okay.
So I'm hoping by the time we talk, it's going to be quieter.
Yeah, no problem.
Hello, welcome, sir. Thank you so much for accommodating the
Angela.
request.
Sure. Thanks much. I was messaging Gunjan. It's going to be noisy at my end. I hope it's not too terrible. I think they are doing some drilling at some other part.
Okay, we are not hearing that now, hoping it will be clear by the time. All right. So we were just trying to catch up with the other speakers for the forum and the moderators on the sessions. So since you're on the second session, but since we had all the speakers here, we thought we would just do a quick round of, basic introduction and what IP Fest has always been about.
Sure.
So IP Fest is into 5th edition, and IP Fest generally does a lot of additional things apart from doing panel discussions. So the main idea of IP Fest that came up was we try to do awareness to the startups, to the incubators, to the universities, to the students. So a lot of awareness activities on intellectual property. This year we were doing an IPR league, which was a league for startups, registered startups. And we're going to have the announcement of 3 winners out of that tomorrow. So tomorrow we have IP Hall of Fame, where we also kind of honor a lot of categories who have contributed in the field of intellectual property. So it could be an academician, it could be a campus, it could be legal category, non-legal category. It could also be, a Samaritan or an inspirational icon. By this, what we are trying to do is encourage people to kind of look into intellectual property and pave their way forward, looking at the success stories. So that's about the IP Fest. Today we have 2 panel discussions. We already are through with the IPR contest, and tomorrow we will be having the IP Hall of Fame. So that is the structure of IP Fest. Today in the panel discussions, I will be introducing the moderators. The moderators will take it up with the speakers and we will carry on the session. We will take the question answers towards the end of the sessions. So thank you, Hemant Bhai. Thank you, Anubhav Bhai. If we are all okay, I'll request the team to kind of admit the people who have joined in.
Just a very quick question on question answer. So
Yes, ma'am.
mine is the first session. So the question answers will take place later on.
Yes,
For
ma'am.
this session also?
Yes. No, not towards the end, after the session.
After the session, that's what.
Your
Not
session.
after both the session. After the first session, there will be question.
Yes,
Fine.
ma'am.
Fine. Got it.
All right. So just give me a minute again. I'll just check with the team and we'll get the other people's into it now.
Sure.
Sure. Thank you.
Sir, good evening.
Yes, ma'am. Have we started the session, ma'am?
No, sir, we're just waiting for the participants to join in and then
Okay.
in a short while we'll start.
Okay. So we are in the same page. Suddenly the system got frozen, so I had to go out and come.
Yes, I received a message, so I've put a special request to them so that you are rejoined. Yesterday
you, ma'am.
also, when we had certain program, we faced the same problem. I was just
Okay.
removed from the meeting and then it took a lot of time to rejoin.
Yes.
Virtual world also has certain technical.
Ma'am, after Abhinav sir, Anubhav sir is done,
Yes.
can I share only one slide?
Of course, sir. Absolutely your choice, whichever
Yeah.
way you want to go.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
I think I'll request Anjula ma'am that she can put a request to the admin to, I'm
Yes.
sure sir must be presenter. So he must be
Yeah.
having right to share his presentation.
That's right.
Chandrikant, so you'll have to,
Yes, ma'am.
Chandrikant, just ensure that we will have the, the present.
I have changed the name.
Present, yes, right?
Yeah.
All right, sure. So with permission of everybody, can I get everybody in and we should start, please?
Sure, ma'am. Sure.
Yeah, all right. So thank you. Chandrikant, you can get everybody in, please.
Okay.
I think Rahul also has presentation to make, so I'm sure he must also be having those rights to share his presentation.
Sure. We'll get that in short now. All right, so hello all, good afternoon everyone. I'm Anjula, I am the CEO at IPPO Foundation, and we welcome you all this afternoon for the 5th edition of the IP Fest, which is another festival which we are doing in terms of adding flavors to the IP Fest. IP Fest is brought to you in association with TIE and GCCI. IPPO is basically an organization which is doing a lot of awareness activities in terms of intellectual property and doing sessions with universities, startups, incubation centers, and all the people who are keen in researching and looking forward to intellectual property as a right that they can use. IP Fest is an initiative under IPPO, and with this genre of IP, we tend to deploy a multi-pronged approach through the celebration of knowledge in the field of IP and raise awareness about the framework and sensitize the opportunities available for individuals, for the youth, and the going forward thought leaders for them to step forward. IP Fest has added IPR League 2021 for the first time, a unique contest for the startups. And along with that, during the IP Fest, we have panel discussions and we also do IP Hall of Fame honors. This year, the theme that we have taken is taking the idea to the market using the intellectual property. And I would like to introduce to you the first topic, which will be moderated by Dr. Nidhi Puch. I would like to introduce her to you, and then I would request her to take the sessions forward. Following that, we will have the question answer sessions. We will then come up for the second panel, which will be moderated by Ms. Gunjan, and she will then take it forward. We will follow up with question and answers towards the end of the second session, right? So let me introduce to you Dr. Nidhi Puch. Dr. Nidhi Puch is the Assistant Professor of Law and Director, Center for Intellectual Property Rights, Gujarat National Law University. She is a committed assistant professor at a leading law school in India, having over 17 years of experience at undergraduate and postgraduate level. She has graduated in economics, persuaded law, and obtained LLM with commercial law specialization. She's also completed her postgraduate diploma in intellectual property rights. She's also earned her doctorate degree from GNLU in the area of intellectual property rights. With that, I would like to request Dr. Nidhi to take the session forward today and introduce the speakers, and then we can take the question answers. So welcome, Dr. Nidhi. Welcome the other speakers on the panel. And I will sign off right now. Over to you, Dr. Nidhi.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that generous introduction, Anjula. And as she's mentioned, being moderator of this particular session, I take this on with the other speaker. A very good afternoon and a very warm welcome to the first session of the 5th edition of IP Fest 2021. We are starting with a very, very interesting topic, and this topic is talking about, or we are going to interact on tips and tricks to identify and protect intellectual property. IP is a subject which has grown enormously in the recent past. Not that human race was never connected with innovation. Human life has always been part and parcel of human innovation. However, the human innovation and its significance is more recently recognized because the world has recognized that gone are the days when the economy used to be standing on 2 pillars of capital and labor. A third pillar of knowledge is now added, which has transformed the nature of the economy. We are now into knowledge-driven economy. And in this knowledge-driven economy, one of the most important and significant role that something has to play, and that is innovation. So creating things, innovating things, identifying it, protecting it, exploiting it. These all things are part and parcel of intellectual property system that we know now in this knowledge-driven economy. So with this few words of introductory remarks, which will help us discuss the topic in a better manner, I take this opportunity to welcome all 3 speakers on board with me. We are very much, I'm very much personally delighted to have an apt combination of experts. We have an expert from academia, that is Honorable DG Sir from PDEU, Dr. Sundar Manoharan. Then we have Mr. Anubhav Kapoor, who comes with a vast experience from the field of industry. And then we have Mr. Rahul Jain, who has experience in practice in litigation. So talking about identification and protection of IP, who better can be the combination than academia, industry, and practice. With this, I take this opportunity to introduce my first speaker, Mr. Anubhav Kapoor. Mr. Anubhav Kapoor is coming with a vast experience, more than 27 of experience of in-house experience with consistent achievement while serving as key member and a advisor to executive management, implementing strategic business growth initiatives, managing through crisis and change, and overseeing all aspects of corporate governance and the corporate legal function with global responsibilities. I have myself had an experience of listening to Mr. Kapoor since last more than 3 to 5 years in IP Fest and IP Summit, and it has always been most fruitful and fulfilling to listen to him, and the kind of experience he has, I'm sure he is going to add a lot of value to our discussion. With that, I invite Mr. Anubhav Kapoor to share his thoughts on today's topic. Over to you, Anubhav Kapoor.
Thank you, Dr. Butch, for the generous introduction. And it's good to be back this year with another session of IP Fest, which attracts a number of startups. I just wanted to share a presentation. So if I can be given rights to share the presentation, otherwise I'll start.
Yes, it will be done, sir.
Sure. So I think it's the topic that we have been given today is a very interesting one, which kind of starts with tips and tricks to identify and protect intellectual property. So when this topic was given to me, then there was a very interesting thoughts that went through my mind in terms of how did I start this journey when I first touched IP, right? And I think the basic question that needs to be answered to kind of conveniently understand what are the tips and tricks are basically related to understanding what is the how, when, and what of IP. And then once we understand that, it becomes far more easier for anyone to kind of understand the tips and tricks to manage a IP portfolio, or for that matter, manage or formulate a IP strategy. And there are two parts of it. So the first obviously relates to innovation, and one of my role models on innovation is Steve Jobs. So Steve Jobs basically said that innovation distinguishes between a leader and a follower. And I have, and Professor Manoharam, who was supposed to begin the session, will take this into more details and deep dive into the whole concept of innovation, because everything which is related to IP will touch upon the whole spirit of innovation, because that is where the entrepreneurial or the business spirit lies, right? So that's an extremely important topic which Dr. Manoharam will address when he speaks in this session. But what I wanted to touch upon today was basically on what needs to be protected and how it needs to be protected, right? And at an overall level, I think any intellectual property, or anything which is worth copying, is worth protecting, right? That's the simple formula that we follow while we think about IP protection. Now, and the reason this statement is important is because when the IP gets created, which is the first step of any protection process, the idea may not have any value. It just comes in normal course of things and is very difficult to identify. It's like that uncut diamond, which is among the tons of rock, and you have to identify that piece of rock and cut it in a way that it shines like a diamond, right? It's that analogy that I always follow when I talk about intellectual property, because the creation part of it and identification part of it is extremely important. And when you identify it, it may not be worth anything, but I think it is it is about the understanding of what has been identified and the value it can create in the future if used in different ways is what is the first step about what needs to be protected, right? So in simple terms, anything which you think is valuable and people could copy, I think it is also worth protecting or at least securing it so that nobody else can use. And of course, we'll get to the different types of it. But usually when we talk about any kind of IP creation, we do touch upon the R&D process. That's the normal norm or normal thing that people have, that all the innovations or researches or the great ideas are born in labs, and the R&D processes are the key to generating a lot of innovation. While that statement is partly true, yes, lot of core basic inventions do happen in the labs, but I think to understand IP, it is also important to understand holistically the entire process, because while the key or the base invention may happen in a R&D lab, but the real innovations happen in the marketplace and also through the feedbacks that you receive from the customer and suppliers. And then the product improves, and every improvement or every enhancement of an invention, there is an opportunity to protect IPR, right? Because the value of those inventions go up as the product matures. So the key takeaway is that this is not a one-time process. It's a continuous process of improvement when we talk about IP. So it is not sufficient that we take the step of protecting it once we file, but it is a process which has to be continually monitored as we go up the value chain or improve our products. But what needs to be protected, right? And that's the important part that I'll spend a little more time in terms of because we are dealing here with startups and small to medium businesses. It is very important to understand what needs to be protected. Now, if you see the pyramid, this is the pyramid for intellectual capital of any corporate or any company or business, right? And there are three parts to it. The base, the blue one that you see, is the intellectual capital. Now, when we say intellectual capital, it constitutes of human capital. It talks about organizational and customer capital. It is all the knowledge, the innovativeness, and the competence that the employees bring to the table, and also in terms of the products and the services that the organization brings. Not everything in this domain is protectable under the IPR, but because it relates to knowledge which is in a human head, and it can walk away from the doors if and it comes back again every day as they leave the office and come back again the next day. But and that is where I think a different way of thinking is required. How do I protect that intellectual capital which walks away every day, and it is a human head? But that is the key, because the know-how, how we make the product, how the knowledge in which we apply to make those products and services are also key and create value for our businesses. The second, or the red, the middle portion, is the intellectual assets, which we call which is the codified knowledge or the know-how, as we call it, for doing products and for making products and services. And this is basically where the documentation starts. And also in terms of the creation and the value that is created through codification of knowledge, it results into some very valuable things that we commonly known as brand, reputation, our strength in terms of having a customer base, or our licensing agreements, or for example, even the distributor channels or the supplier channels that we have developed, because all that kind of adds a bit to create the final product that your customer is really paying for. And if you think each one of them holds a value for running the business. And on top of the blue and the red is the golden pyramid, which is basically that's the intellectual property that we are trying to secure here. And there are different ways in which we can secure it, like patents, trademarks, trade secrets, or copyrights. But that is that's the small portion in the entire large pyramid of intellectual property, of intellectual assets that we need to protect. So coming back in terms of how do we protect? So a research shows that anything in any corporate, about 70 to 80% of companies' market value comes from intangible assets. And the intangible assets can be protected through different ways. And it is not that we have to protect it only through patents or copyrights, or there are other ways of protecting it, like signing an NDA, or having documentation processes, or even publications, which can protect your IP over a period of time. And that is where I would leave the discussion at this point of time, to think about more, that whenever you think about protecting intellectual property, think about how, when, and what I am supposed to protect, and that will lead you to the next destination of our answers in terms of what needs to be protected. With that, I will conclude my session. Back to you, Nidhi.
Thank you very much, Anubhav sir, for highlighting. I think the first line with which you started was really very appealing. That is, what is worth stealing is worth protecting. So I think that is something which sums up the significance of the creativity that is part and parcel of any company. And thanks for showing the golden tip of the pyramid, that how important it is, and leaving the audience with the questions on how, when, and what. I think if we search for these answers, the purpose would more or less be served. Thank you so much for highlighting the significance of intellectual, intangible asset, if I put it in your terms, as far as this is concerned. Thank you. With that, I would take this opportunity to go to the next speaker, and the next speaker is Honorable DG, Dr. Sundar Manoharan sir. And I am, as I mentioned, I am so very delighted that we are having him with us today. Sir comes with a very vast experience. Sir is a renowned educationalist, scientist, and administrator. He obtained his doctoral degree from the Indian Institute of Science, Bangalore in the year 1991. Sir has served with the Indian Institute of Technology thereafter. Then he was Vice Chancellor of Karunya University, Coimbatore, and at Satyabama University between February 14 till February 2020. Then he is in Gandhinagar with us in PDEU, and he has over 30 years of extensive experience in teaching and research. He was deputed from IIT Kanpur to be the founder director of UGC-funded 100 crore project to establish National Center for Nanoscience and Nanotechnology at the University of Mumbai premises in the year 2012-2014. Sir's achievements are really very lengthy. Just to mention few, because I'm tempted to share this with the audience. Sir has served as a visiting professor in internationally reputed institutions, including NUS Singapore, University of California, Berkeley, Max Planck Institute, Germany, Imperial College of London, and University of Maryland, USA. And in recent past, he has had several administrative positions, including being member of Project Advisory Committee at BST and DRDO. Restricting myself not to go further with Sir's achievement, I take this opportunity to welcome him once again and request him to take this discussion forward. Sir, over to you.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Angela, for inviting me, and also Professor Nidhi for the kind introduction. Since it's a power-packed program for 1 hour, I don't want to lose time. Straight away get into the topic. I think Mr. Kapoor Saab gave a very good punch on why we need to protect our intellectual property and what are the nitty-gritties involved in it. Now, I thought instead of telling the whole thing about how to make it happen, rather I would like to touch upon one case study, maybe that will help instead of jumping too many case studies. I do have 21 patents now, IPR file patents, out of which 7 are USA granted patents. And almost all these are published and granted patents. Most of it are in the process or product patents. But after coming to PDEU, I have filed nearly 4 design patents as well. So that makes the entire list to 25. And I can go on and on to tell about how I stumbled upon these innovations and how the design patents came and how the product and process patent came. But I think I will steal all the time from Mr. Rahul Jain, so I'm not going to take time. I will share only one slide with you. This happened sometime, let's say 2 years back, 5 years back, and I felt I should tell this story. Now, this is a beautiful story that evolved out of a student who came to me at IIT Kanpur, where I was teaching for nearly 20 years. She came to me, she said, sir, 5 years now, I have not got any great result. And she started crying. She said, I want to get married. I don't know where this whole thing is going. So I told her, okay, yeah, all the results are negative. I said, that's where you need a guide. So if all results you're getting is positive, then you don't need a research supervisor. So immediately I told her, 2 days I will give for you. You come, show all your files and show me all the negative results. To make the story short, today there are 2 USA granted patents out of that discussion. So that's where I want to take the story. If you see, I'm sorry, I'm bathing you into a little bit of technical details or some chemistry, but I should tell you how you value your patent and how alert you got to be, whether you're a professor or a student, because sometimes you stumble at a blockbuster. And when the blockbuster comes, you need to awaken and quickly jump into IPR Act, otherwise you leave it. Now, I do have at least 5 IPRs, which are blockbusters, one on cardiovascular stent. One recently, we have launched a ventilator, ICU ventilator, which was built during the COVID times, not before. And therefore, I cherish that IPR much more because it was born in captivity. Now, if you see this slide, you see a small molecule, and this is called aluminum quinoline molecule. If you want to nickname this molecule, it's called Kodak molecule, because Kodak were the first ones to file IPR on this. And this is a fascinating molecule that has revolutionized your TVs, your display system, your iPad, and your mobile. If you're using mobile and you're very happy about the screen saving colors, blue, green, blue, everything, and if you have 256 colors or 1026 colors as Samsung glories in, you have to thank this molecule. Because if you want green, you get green. If you want blue, you get blue, because you can do upgrading the color coordinates, or you can filter the color coordinates and get the red component of it. Now, why I say this as Kodak molecule is, today, if you see organic LED displays, either as a TV or computer monitors, or even flexible display monitors, it is all coming from this organic molecule. Now, what is so great about it? Because today, if I have to use it, I have to pay quite a fortune to pay royalty to Kodak in order to use this molecule even to make a device of my own. They hold the IPR. Now, I want to dodge. How can I dodge and then do something about it? This is where the research comes into picture. If you see this top cartoon, what you see, there are two structures, where meridional structure and facial structure, which is generally used in all the displays. So when my student came to me and said, sir, every time I'm using this, I'm getting some crazy result. I'm not getting what is reported in the literature. Then I told her to go and get an X-ray from a diffraction made before she sublimates and purifies the compound. And the image, what you see down, a big structure, like a helical structure, that is another form of the same molecule, which the companies do not use, but this molecule can be potential. What does it mean? In this molecule, you see only one aluminum, whereas in the molecule which you prepare and filter and clean it before you take it to a product level, you are actually ending up in a molecule which has 4 aluminum instead of 1 aluminum. Then I told her, look, you're really having a jackpot now. So you start taking away 1 aluminum and put some other elements. And that's what you see in the second cartoon here. Instead of the parent compound AlQ3, then you put chromium, cobalt, lanthanum, aluminum, and so on. So you can keep on playing with any different metal. But the beauty here is whenever I am taking only cautiously few aluminum atoms and putting something else, the X-ray pattern remains the same. That means the structure of this compound is not affected. Now, if you take and if you see under electron microscope, you see beautiful crystals of this. Now, if you decompose this respective ones, you see on one side you get a high temperature ceramic, and the other one 5% chromium is nothing but ruby powder, and cobalt aluminate, what you see on the green X-ray, is a beautiful pigment, and the LaLO3 is actually a lasing material, and these are garnets. So every compound which you have substituted with the basic AlQ3, you are getting, these are called inorganic phosphors. Inorganic phosphors. In other words, I usually used to nickname this as a genie in the molecule. Genie in only one molecule. There's so much that you can do with this molecule. And you can see also on the right side, bundles of nanowires you can make. This is the first report in the world where you can make inorganic phosphorus as nanowires. And you can see in the table 3 that I have listed, AlQ3 gives Al2O3, which is a laser host material, and I can make a chromium, ruby, lasing material, everything, all the photonic materials I can make out of a simple compound, which as per Kodak was a useless compound. So the point here is, how did we stumble at that? Because you need a knowledge of the crystal structure of this very basic compound called aluminum Q3. If you understand the crystal structure, then you can understand how you can put some dopants and try to take it beyond the photoluminescent material that today we are handling in our display devices or flexible electronics. We are using the same compound. And there comes the innovation, which is a USA patent. I just wanted to stop here the slide and then address you now. So this actually came out of a student who was frustrated with negative results. So when you go through negative results, don't ever think that the negative results are failure, because that will script you into the human history for doing something very, very different and path-breaking, and sometimes it is disruptive. For your kind information, the Intellectual Ventures, a group from USA, actually have offered 10,000 rupees even to file this patent on our behalf. They paid royalty only for filing this patent. And similar one, I didn't want to show too many slides and bore you. And there is another one for zinc Q3 complex, for which we were awarded another $10,000. Of course, this money went to our parent organization, that is IIT Kanpur, but we were beneficiaries of that. Now, what I'm telling my young students and the faculty members alike, you have to keep thinking rationally, and you have to think what is the problem that I am attacking and what is the new innovation that I'm bringing. Sometimes the IPR is so well covered, if you make a incremental changes, it is already covered. But IPR usually accommodates disruptive technology. That means it should be a blockbuster. It should be out of the way of regular thinking. And once you stumble, you sense a innovation, then that's where you need to run for covering IPR. Very recently, we made one more as a sensor which will blink in the ocean and keep giving RF signal in case a plane goes around crashing. For example, we know 370 Malaysian aircraft once plunged, and for nearly 2 years there was no tracking device. And with all our technology we couldn't do, but we have come now with the tracking device which can actually send signals for 10 to 15 hours, so that if anybody is in the close range, it will give you a signal that that's where the planes plunged into a disaster. Now, we can actually try to keep our eyes and minds open to understand what is the unsolved question, or what is the unsolved problem in which we can go and do a blockbuster innovation. And very recently, we also covered another AI and IoT based health monitoring system for mapping the entire production route of a dairy plant, starting with collecting the milk from the farmer, evaluating the content, fat content of the milk, the bacterial count, and then properly rewarding him. And then when it is cooled in a cooler, bulk milk cooler, the farmer is supposed to maintain it at 4 degrees C for plenty of time, but usually they don't switch on the generator. So can we map whether irregularities are happening? Because the more you don't use the refrigerant, the bacteria will keep escalating exponentially. So how to map the health of the produce, dairy produce, until it is taken to the plant? And sometimes during distribution, there is also pilferage. People try to steal milk and then pour some water, adulteration. Now, how do you monitor that? Geofencing, everything in a mobile app, you can try to do that. And this is also covered under a IP. Now, I'm just giving you a variation of stuff. One on the IoT, AI, another one on the health monitoring. And then what I showed you is first, everywhere you have to keep your eyes and ears open to see what is the unaddressed issue. 10 years back, I rushed to CMC Vellore to see my father-in-law who was suffering from heart attack, and they put stent. And then I went with some money, so I paid the money and I was about to discharge. I saw another person in the private ward, one person having the same stent problem, cardiac problem. So I asked him how many stents they put. He started crying. He said, I don't have money. I don't know what to do because I cannot pay. 20,000, 30,000 I can do. What is that I can do? So when I knew that he was not able to take stent because he didn't have money, that broke my heart. So when I came out, I started thinking, what can nanotechnology do to such patients? Low cost, stent can we bring? And what nanotechnology can do? Today, I have to tell you that that's one of the world's first patent on nanotechnology in stent. And we also have a startup at IIT Kanpur, and it is going through clinical trials. Now, sometimes we go to hospitals, sometimes you go to malls, sometimes you go to showroom, sometimes you go to even a stadium, you go to classroom, you go to university. But everywhere, if you keep on thinking, what is it, the unaddressed problem that is still existing, that's where the innovation comes. And mind you, we are living in interdisciplinary world. This is time for interdisciplinary innovations. Therefore, you need to build a cluster of people. When I stumbled at this stent innovation, I was going to drop my niece at a chess academy, and I happened to meet a cardiologist there, and he pulled me to the coffee shop, and we both filed a patent in 3 months' time. Can you imagine? You go to a chess academy, but you stumble at a most renowned cardiologist, and the guy gives you a stent sample that you use it for making nano. So world is full of opportunities. Every day you have to ask, how can I affect the life of other people positively? What is it that my background can bring? And also, if you're very dogmatic and say, oh, no, I'm a physicist, I'm a chemist, I cannot think beyond this, then you are not actually getting exposed to an innovation world. I'm very happy. I'm sure Reliance Retail manager, Mr. Jain is there, and I'm sure he's going to add to the story of how you can probably get into retail also from the IPR point of view. But I want to encourage you that you can really come to us in case you want to discuss how to go about any ideas. Probably Nidhi ma'am will share our coordinates, and we will be more than happy to scout you through innovations. And I'm very happy to tell you that PDEU in the last 1 year has filed 154 patents, out of which more than 100 have been granted in the last 18 months. So there is no limit to our innovative prowess, and India is having brilliant mind. We are actually 1.3 billion people. Minimum, we should walk away with at least 1 million patents per year, and that's our potential. So I congratulate all of you, and thank you, Angela ma'am, for giving me the opportunity. Dr. Nidhi, sorry if I've taken more time. Thank you.
No, sir. Thank you so much. In fact, I'm sure the audience was really involved in listening to you, because the positive and encouraging words that you have shared with us, showing us that we are living in a world which is full of opportunity, things that we take for granted. Keep your eyes and ears open. I think this one statement we must have heard from our parents being hardly 5-7 years, but I think that is something which is, as a matter of fact, such a kind of few golden words that if we do that, then I think sky is the limit. And thank you very much for showing that case study also, that I'm sure has conveyed a message that something which starts with failure may not end necessarily so. So something which was negative is converted into positive, and how a supervisor and a guide and a mentor can play a positive role. So thank you very much for telling us how innovation is full of opportunities, and how anyone can be innovative, and there is no end to being creative and contributing towards betterment of human race. Thank you so much, sir, for those thoughts. With that, I take this opportunity to go to our third speaker, Mr. Rahul Jain. And as I mentioned, that we are really lucky today that we are having an apt combination of speakers. Mr. Jain is a third generation lawyer with a diverse and vast experience in techno-legal areas, and a qualified professional in law, intellectual property and technology. He has handled, pioneered and constructed legal teams in the areas of compliance, privacy, ethics, risk, government affairs, environmental, social and governance, corporate social responsibility, and the list goes on. He is having rich experience in merger and acquisitions, compliance, ethics, intellectual property, civil and criminal labor litigation. So with the key roles that he has played, being the head intellectual property and regulatory compliance at Flipkart, Walmart, and the education that he has got, I'm sure we will get we will get him to share his thoughts with us, which will definitely enhance our understanding on today's topic. Over to you, Rahul, and thank you very much for joining, and I hope you are able to share your presentation.
Thank you, Nidhi. I hope I am audible.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, thank you, Nidhi, for kind words. And I must say that the jurisprudential touch has been given by Mr. Kapoor at the beginning of the presentation, and the stories as told by Dr. Manoharan and the path-breaking patent innovations he got registered with various other joint inventors is amazing. I'll basically, stick to the tips and tricks to identify and protect IP. So I did a lot of in-house work in taking care of intellectual property of various Indian and multinational entities, wherein I identified that we do a lot of interaction with different departments and try to identify, try to take care of the intellectual innovations and try to register them and then try to enforce them. Um, Basically, when we try to have an interaction with different internal stakeholders, we are in the process of creating intellectual property, and we generally have an interaction with them on the conception of an approach, because a lot of people, they are not aware about that how the intellectual property is being registered, what is intellectual property. They have their ideas and they think that they can protect their ideas, but the basic understanding over here is that ideas are not protected, but the expression or the process or the machine readable form of that idea is protectable in the form of patents or copyrights. So we generally try to identify their idea and put it in the form which is basically translate that idea into design. And definitely, so as an in-house counsel, my role is that I need to protect the IP generated while working for the company. So we generally have a IP clause in the employment contract, which identifies that the confidentiality and the intellectual property is being maintained and being reserved for the company itself. Then definitely when we translate the idea into a design and then we try to identify that what components are required to actually make that idea and design work. So of course, we talk to various outside vendors, also try to identify that what additional components are required. We share the appropriate information under the confidentiality agreement. So basically, the component manufacturers or the individuals who are making need to be bring into the cycle, and they need to divine and devise a component or the current idea. And definitely when we try to work more on that idea, and as everybody knows that we have a couple of threshold requirements to get patent registered in India, we try to identify that how the utility, which is a third component of registration of patent, needs to be identified. So we identify suppliers and subcontractors, and we try to identify that how the specifications which we have created with these innovators needs to be released with to these suppliers and under the no confidentiality agreement. Then definitely when we create the actual product, we try to market it, because every invention, innovation, investment needs to have a return on investment, because these are all being done with the companies who are trying to get return on investment. So we try to market it and we disclose it to further external stakeholders like customers or investors or prospective partners. And then of course that has to be also limited in scope, and the matter should not be disclosed entirely to them. It has to be on the need basis, need to be disclosed to them. And finally, the idea per se, there are a lot of important information in idea per se. So we try to identify that what needs to be disclosed, what is vital information, and whatever has been disclosed under the confidential and non-disclosure agreements, so that at each step, if we have to turn back and our idea may not materialize, we would be able to safeguard the interest of company while trying to materialize and while trying to make that idea into actual product which can be released in the market. So what I realized that each and every, even the startups or the mid-sized companies or the big companies, MNCs, needs to have an IP policy. IP policy is a document which runs into hundreds of pages, but what I realized that we need to have a one pager and a document which identifies relevant things, and then we can have subsequent documents to those one pager, and we can share that IP policy with all the stakeholders, because they need to know that what kind of IP they can generate, because different department like marketing team generates a lot of brand names, a lot of designs, a lot of copyrightable subject matter. R&D teams generate a lot of intellectual, innovative, patent registered stuff. So we try to identify that how we need to generate the structure of this IP policy, because that IP policy will be taking care of your innovation, preserving of that innovation, and then subsequently protection of that innovation. So so in one of my earlier organization, we have worked with IIT incubation centers. So we identify that the element of ownership has to be properly identified at the beginning, because the project starts, and that we incubate, and a lot of sponsorships also happens with these technical institutions. So we identify that how the internet these um, uh, elements are being properly identified as per the intellectual property policy of the company. Then, of course, a lot of stuff is being outsourced, wherein we identify that these IP owned stuff are being properly channelized with third parties, and as per law or agreement or usage guidelines, these can be used, because a lot of things are being filed in joint ownership, a lot of things are being filed in the individual ownership. So we categorize that how the ownership flow, title flow will happen. And then treatment of confidential information and trade secrets. So in a lot of big companies where the technical innovation happens, they kept those technical innovations deliberately confidential as a trade secret, and they don't want to file it, because intellectual property is being registered on quid pro quo basis, wherein you need to open up your intellectual things to the public, and then only you get right and monopoly for certain period of time. But they deliberately keep these things as a trade secret, and try to share it on need basis under the proper confidentiality and non-disclosure agreements with the relevant businesses. And then finally, whatever products you are creating as per the intellectual property, the group companies and subsidiaries need to know that how to use, market, manufacture, sale, license, assign such products, and those are to be in combination with the strategies and goals and legal rights associated with those IPs, because certain products are being registered in certain jurisdictions, certain products are being licensed in certain jurisdictions. So you need to have that kind of understanding through that IP policy, that which entity, which subsidiary can use such products. And finally, whenever we create a brand or a packaging material or a marketing material, and there are also co-branding license agreements with certain other stakeholders, we do that particular thing with proper due diligence and post legal confirmation. Then I take a couple of things which I believe that needs to be there in every company to invigorate the IP sense amongst the stakeholders. And of course, see, they are doing a lot of innovative stuff, but they need to know that how that innovative stuff can be converted to a commercial product for the company, which can be beneficial for them as well as for the company. Because in a lot of companies, I saw that these are having innovation award programs for innovators, wherein they give them a lot of motivations in the form of money, so that they can continuously being part of such innovative cycle. So under IP education, they have orientation programs, they have in-house newsletters, they have invention questionnaire, wherein they understand the deep technical understanding of patents, trademarks, copyrights, designs, and they need to know that while creating a trademark, they should not be using a generic word. They need to know that while creating a patent, what is actually going in that particular technical domain. They should not be utilizing that stuff in their product. Otherwise, they need to enter into cross licensing. So such important conceptual understanding is being put across with various stakeholders, so that they can understand what is IP is all about, because they need to understand the nitty-gritties in order to create a product which can be beneficial commercially for themselves and for the company. Of course, subject matter identification is very important. They need to know that what is the innovation threshold. Um, Whatever they are creating as word, logo, symbol should not be generic or suggestive. They need to know that what is artistic, literary, dramatic, aesthetic works they have to create. Finally, what trend I have seen, that in order to create IP, generally these big companies are trying to protect their IP through trade secrets and contracts, because of the quid pro quo issue of intellectual property, and they have very watertight intellectual property contracts with certain stakeholders, and they share information on a need basis only. Finally, I believe that post identification of intellectual property, how you protect intellectual property is very important. Two important way with which I have seen that how these companies are protecting intellectual property is having a watertight IP clauses. So that runs into all of their employment contract, into their vendor contract, into their license agreements, franchisee agreements, definitely into the confidential and non-disclosure agreements, and definitely, of course. So I will categorize that if you want to protect your intellectual property, you need to police your intellectual property, and of course, the budgeting and expenditure on policing intellectual property is very uneven across three segments of SMEs or mid-level companies and big companies, wherein when I was doing a lot of counterfeit raids across India for one FMCG electronic giant, we do a lot of counterfeit raids. We do a lot of recce of such counterfeit targets, and we get local court commissioner appointed, and then we do such seizure and raid. But definitely, if you are having limited budgets, you can issue cease and desist notices. You can create a level of sensitization among stakeholders, among third parties, that okay, this is registered property and you need to refrain from using it. So there are various ways with which you can police your intellectual property. Of course, you can file civil suits and criminal complaints in order to stop the third party infringers, and damages and imprisonment are the basic remedies we got under such civil and criminal procedures. Finally, I did a lot of work on trademark management. So what I believe, that when you are trying to manage your trademark, when you're trying to protect your trademarks, you need to have an approach across three levels, in terms of when you're adopting a trademark in the trademark cycle, you shouldn't be adopting a generic word. You should be adopting a arbitrary and fanciful word, because generally we get a question from our marketing team that when we are generating a brand name, or we are generating a sort of punchline for a marketing sale or something like that, what needs to be taken into consideration so that we should not be in a problem in future. So how the adoption of the mark should take place, we need to do a little bit of search, go to the free search forums, try to identify that we are using mark continuously for the certain period of time, and then get it registered and maintain the marks. Of course, with respect to creatives, we got a lot of understanding from our marketing team that they should not overwrite creatives, because whenever they create the JPEG or a PDF file, it has creation date. So if they keep that first file intact and keep it in the save world, then we would be having a proper user date since the beginning, because we do a lot of different color combinations. We try to register it with shapes and sizes, and then the use requirement for trademarks is very important, because in India also recently, I think that we are requiring affidavit of use while filing the application. In one of the jurisdictions like Philippines, they ask the store name, which needs to be mentioned in the affidavit of use, to even file the applications, because unless and until they don't accept the applications, probably they are not having the proposed to be user basis application way of filing trademark application. Then because of the trademarks are being registered for, like the total duration for registration of trademarks is like 3 years in India. But now I think they have reduced that time period. So we generally, give them the tip that, okay, if we are having this urgent mark to be registered, we can go for the domain name registration, and subsequently we can go for the trademark filing and get it registered as a trademark. Of course, single class application, multi-class application processes we have in India, but we generally give them the tip that you need to file single class application, because if there is an opposition comes on multi-class application, all your applications got stalled down, and then you need to file division application. Then certainly, we have bad faith early filing oppositions in certain jurisdictions, wherein you need to police your application to your mark in the trademark registry, so that you can oppose such applications. Then I've seen that if you are having a trademark registered and you are having a trademark license agreement in place, you need to get it recorded with the IPO, and that recorder will give you a lot of help in enforcement of your trademark rights. In one of my previous companies, it's an electronic giant, wherein we got a lot of custom recorders done at that particular country, where we are getting a lot of manufacturing done, so that stop the pilferage of counterfeit goods in other jurisdiction and in the jurisdiction where we are selling our products. Of course, a lot of IP are being registered, and you can have dual protection for them, like a couple of trademarks which are having artistic design can be registered as trademark as well as copyrights, and a couple of copyrights which can be used as a as a design can be registered in the Design Act as well. So you need to identify that what best you can have and the most out of the available intellectual property regime. Finally, what I have seen, and we have also agreed with the management of various companies, that instead of filing actual intellectual property applications, they want to save their intellectual property, their intellectual know-how through trade secret. So they identify what is the most valuable thing, they prioritize and put resources to protect it. They sensitize workforce, and they share the information on use basis only, they flow the track, they they identify the flow and track the information which is going out of their company. So even what I've seen, that the USB port of employees have been blocked in such companies, and in one of my previous companies, I've seen that even if you are going to R&D facility, they stickered your mobile camera phones, and if you have breached that sticker, then that particular thing will be rebooted, and they will give you back after rebooting the mobile phones. So uh, uh, on that note, I say that intellectual property management is very important, um, and intellectual property identification and intellectual property protection are the key assets and facets of intellectual property management. So when you do it, you have no one fit all approach. You have um, different approaches for different entities, having different budgets, and you can identify a lot of ways of protecting intellectual property even without spending money, because you can share information, you can get IP protected through contracts, through other stuff. And on that note, I'll say thank you so much. And it's a great I think topic which has been given by the moderator and the IPPO, and thank you.
Thank you so much, Rahul, for highlighting the significance of IP management. I think for the entire journey, starting from concept to commercialization, one has to know how to manage IP. And if that is something which is, so gone are the days when we used to just talk about the significance. We are actually in the time where we need to come out with something which is very tangible. And what can be better than having an IP policy, which is a very tangible outcome of IP management for any company, any academic institute, any organization, any agency that wants to do something with innovation. I'm extremely thankful to all three speakers who have taken us on a very interesting journey, starting from Mr. Anubhav Kapoor, who showed us how significant IP, that in form of intellectual asset is, to DG sir, who highlighted that the world is full of innovation and the opportunities are endless. It's up to you how to be rational, keeping your eyes and ears open. You make maximum out of it. And thank you, Rahul, for showing us how better we can actually identify and protect our IP with the tangible management system, which is in form of IP policy. I think I keep the floor open for question. Couple of direct questions that I have received very quickly. I will take these two questions, and looking at the watch and also getting some message from Anjula, I will then, I think, end the first session. So I think the first question that I have received is for DG sir. Sir, there is a question which is about how institute can commercialize IP, and is there any model which is to be adopted by the institute so that they can commercialize their IP and make maximum out of it? Sir, you are muted.
Yes, every institute has a IPR cell, and therefore a IPR policy exists. And especially when it comes to commercialization program, there should be a robust commercialization model, business model for that. And the first approximation is the inventors are there. Most of the academic institutions file in the name of the university rather than in the name of the inventors. It is done. It may break the heart of the inventors though, but when you consider a ranking system or accreditation, usually the search engines they use is on the name of the university, not on the inventors. Therefore, for the goodness of it, it is better to have it in the name of university, and you can have a certificate to do this, to identify who are the inventors. Now, in terms of commercialization, definitely we need to have a top-down approach also. For example, if any patent, which is a design or a process or product patent, the inventor should take at least 50% trouble to connect with the closest or nearest industry to whom he is addressing. In other words, if you already know the industry and the industry has given the problem, you crack the problem, I think it's much more easier. For example, we cracked the problem in 2 weeks' time when we had Darangdara Chemicals came with the problem of leach liquor, what to do. So if you have a handholding with the industry, it is much more easy. If you don't have and you stumble at a blockbuster, then the inventor should take the onus to identify potential people to whom he can translate. In other words, such industry can be used as a test bed either for clinical trial or for industry trial. That's the right way. And then the management or the administration also needs from their part to go and scout for the right type of people so that this model can work out. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for highlighting that, sir.
Yes,
the second question that we have is for Rahul. And this question is, of course, on infringement, because when we are talking about protection, infringement is the key. So how to manage international and trans-border infringement? You're muted, sir.
Sorry. So I think it's all about how you manage things. Since trademark is also territorial right, although if you are having a mark which is well known, you can try to protect it overseas without registration. But I believe that it's better. In one of my previous organizations, we have rolled down the brand in 140 jurisdiction. So basically, management decided that since we are supposed to go in those jurisdictions, we are supposed to sell in those jurisdictions, we are supposed to manufacture in those jurisdictions, we need to file it beforehand, and then definitely we need to on the country specific basis, we can go for international filing in terms of Madrid Protocol, in terms of WIPO. So it's all about how you want to strategize it, because registration, I think, is very important. If you are IBMs or Coca-Cola or McDonald's of the world, of course, you have the way of protecting your right because you are well known without registration under the passing of common law rights. But I believe that you need to strategize, you need to have specific attorneys in such jurisdiction, and try to make whatever brand you have a well-known famous mark. You need to have proper policing, you need to have proper attorneys placed in such jurisdiction. But if you see with respect to, say, approach for startups, what I believe that you can get registrations in the form of domain names in such jurisdiction, identify in those relevant jurisdictions, wherever you are going, you can file your applications subsequently in those jurisdictions. So you can have a mixed approach of registration as a domain name, but use requirements is a must. So subsequently, when you are actually landing in that particular jurisdiction, you can get that registered and use it as per the relevant jurisdiction laws.
Thank you. Thank you very much for highlighting the significance of registration of intellectual property. With this, I take this opportunity to thank the speakers. Your thoughts have really made the entire sharing of your thoughts, and this interaction has really made this particular session very fulfilling. Thank you very much. And with this, over to you, Anjula. Thank you very much, IPPO, for giving this opportunity to all of us to discuss such an apt and a contemporary topic, which is very close to all of our heart. Thank you very much, Anjula. Over to you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, ma'am. And
Thank you, Anjula.
Great speakers. Thank you, DG sir and Rahul Jain and Anubhavji and Nidhi for taking it and steering it to the right momentum for the topic called the tips and tricks of identification protecting the IP. I truly appreciate your time and helping us and the participants to understand a lot of the tricks that they can kind of consider taking it forward.
Thank you. Pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you very much.